continue. Joining us now with more on this latest Capitol Hill skirmish is North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer. He serves on the Budget Committee. Can you give us the latest on this, Senator? I've seen some flashes today that things are either non-starters or maybe possibilities. Where are we?
Sure. First of all, I hate the word non-starters. I think when you use the words non-starters, it's hard to start a conversation. That said, it is a beginning negotiating point. But I think if we take this in chunks, Joe, 1.1 trillion is a pretty big chunk. But if you consider that what they're looking for is $150 billion in offsets for the, for the current negotiation, the next 2 years in raising the caps, that's a much more doable chunk. And my understanding is that the White House now, late last night, provided Speaker Pelosi with a number of options that add up to $500 billion or so, and from those options, she can pick what might be doable within her caucus in the House of Representatives, and that seems like a reasonable approach.
Is it far enough away from the election where you're not going to see some, where you won't see politics really come into this? Because I think that maybe the Trump administration has learned their lesson that you don't really want to mess with this, most likely,
Sure.
Especially when you want an economy strong going into the election. That makes me a little bit concerned about the other side that maybe wouldn't mind it a little bit if the economy slowed before the election because of the debt ceiling. Do you think they're going to be more intractable, the Democrats, because of that?
Well, first of all, I have to say I've been pretty impressed with the way Speaker Pelosi has negotiated with Secretary Mnuchin in the last week or two. She seems to want to deal as much as the president wants to deal, and she should. Good politics is good for all players, and I think that the uncertainty that is created by chaos can splash back pretty hard on the majority in the House of Representatives as much as it can the president. But we also have to remember she's got a complicated job. When I was in the majority and I was a House member and John Boehner was the Speaker, these were complicated for us too. You always had to find a way to cobble together a majority, and that majority may or may not be all your side. And I think this is where leaders step up and they look for that common ground, and they come up with the art of the possible. A victory for Donald Trump on this obviously would be good for his campaign, but it would also be very good for House Democrats.
So you were in the House. I was wondering, because you said, politics can be good for both people, and they'll give Trump one. I said, wow, this guy's new or something. But you've been around long enough to have seen something. I hope that you're right about that, and I think the American people hope that you're right. This is a stupid thing to be playing politics with, and both sides are guilty of that. Is it going to be another? We haven't been using kick the can down the road for a while. After we used to use it about the EU, and trying to prevent things over there. But are we ever really going to do something that has some lasting impact so that we don't do this every year, every 6 months, whatever it is?
Well, there are a couple of things I'd say to that. First of all, having annual budgets, or having, in this case, the talk of a biennial budget, which, by the way, I think would be a great policy reform to have 2-year budgets. I just think it gives everybody more breathing room and more certainty. But some of those cuts or offsets that the White House has provided to the Speaker to look at include some reforms. And when you hear reforms, that sometimes just simply means kicking the can down the road. In other words, you can defer, say, for example, the budget caps for a couple of years. All that does is it helps balance the books today, but it just kicks the can down the road. It means that the problem exists 2 years from now. I don't think, Joe, we ever really solve this bigger problem of debt and deficit until we deal with the mandatory side of the ledger. We're just talking about discretionary spending, which is about 1/3 of the budget and becoming less, a smaller part of the budget at a time when we're also trying to rebuild the military that's been devastated for the last decade prior to Donald Trump becoming the president. So it's pretty impossible to deal with the big picture if we're going to set aside 2/3 of the budget and never deal with it. I'm one that's happy to talk about it. I think this is a situation where you don't say non-starter. You put everything on the table: revenue, whatever you need to do, changing the age of eligibility for the entitlement programs. Put it all on the table. Have an adult discussion. Make a commitment that we're going to get it done. And that's what I think has eluded us for a long time. And I think, business and markets would really welcome that kind of a discussion right now.
think the president's still mad about the last time that he signed off on something, and he thought he had some type of commitment for border legislation, and,
right.
it never came. He says he's not going to be fooled again. If he decides he's not going to take whatever the Democrats come up with, you said you'll call him and suggest he will you do that? Will he take your call?
Oh, sure. I talk to him a fair bit. I try to keep my calls to a minimum. I think political capital gets squandered too easily sometimes in Washington, D.C. But if it's a reasonable deal, it doesn't need to be perfect. We need to find, politics is the art of the doable. I've told the president that, quite recently. Politics is the art of the possible. And so, again, your viewers, Wall Street, businesses on Main Street, individuals that are paying their bills, we all need the kind of certainty that comes from both sides of the aisle, both sides of the Capitol, and all three branches of the government working together, pulling in the same direction. That's what Americans want to see, and that's what investors want to see.
I was going to ask you, I'm crappy at geography. I mean, are you near Milwaukee? Is that your closest NBA? Who do you like in the NBA? I feel bad for North Dakota. You ever had a team that do anything?
Well, the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are sort of our team.
Really?
We're more.
Okay.
Minnesota.
We're big. We're more football plant. Yeah. It's right next to Minnesota, right? Minneapolis is a 3-hour drive from Fargo.
Yeah.
So we're Timberwolves fans, we're Twins fans, we're Vikings fans. Of course, we're all Eagles fans now that Bismarck's own Carson Wentz is the highest-paid quarterback in the history of the world.
I didn't realize you'd be really good. And I mean, you don't like the Yankees, right? I mean, the rest of the country just despises that. Alex,
listen, I understand that. I'm very honored to be on with them, but I will tell you that I'm one as a fan. I always like excellence. I have a hard time, while we all love the underdog, I have a hard time not honoring excellence. So even as a Minnesota Viking fan, it's hard not to like the Green Bay Packers, for example.
And if you didn't have the Yankees, they come into town. Wherever they go, it's the Yankees are coming into town. So that's fun. That's good.
Right.
All right.
That's fun. Yeah.
Senator, and you said Fargo, just like Heidi. Heitkamp says, real good. Okay, you betcha. We'll see you later.
We grew up very close to one another, similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
Rural North Dakota, blue-collar families.
Yep.
We talk like we're in the movie, but
you do?
Not quite as extreme.
I know. I love that. I practice that, actually. Anyway, Senator, I hope to see you again. Thanks for being a guest today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay.